With the rise in popularity of Chinese animations or donghwas, it was a matter of time before one of the most prominent web novel series in China were to get an animated adaptation. Now of course I'm talking about Lord of the Mysteries, a series with over 1400 chapters and now a visually stunning adaptation. However, despite its pretty visuals and astounding soundtrack, it does have one major glaring issue. Due to its length, it would be almost impossible to fully adapt everything presented in its source material, which in effect creates a series with an almost too fast of a pace that by the third episode, you might not even know which character is which or where the story might be leading to. And so I'm going to try and condense the first 3 episodes into an easy to follow video to serve as an introduction to the donghua. Now this isn't going to be a cut content type of video, but instead one that explains what exactly is happening within these episodes. I'm going to try and keep anything novel related to a minimum to try and be as faithful as I can to what the donghua attempted to present. With that said, let's start with episode 1. The first episode introduces us to our main character, Shou Mingrui. He is a Chinese citizen who loves to read web novels. However, one day he had a stroke of bad luck at work and recalled that he had bought a book with a lucky ritual, which he then proceeded to perform. And while nothing had happened at first, that very same night he gets transported into this other world and wakes up in the body of another person. The person who he reincarnated as is Klein Moretti. He is a recent graduate of Cole University with a major in history, and while his parents have already passed away, he does have a younger sister named Melissa and an older brother named Benson. When Shou woke up in the body of Klein, he noticed that he had committed suicide, but because Shou reincarnated into his body, Klein's wound managed to heal itself. Now, Klein's death is related to another murder case where 2 of his friends, Welch and Naya, were found dead. Their cause of death was the same as Klein's, and before they had all passed away, all 3 of them were studying a diary from the indigenous family. However, after they died, the diary had disappeared. While feeling confused, Shou starts to slowly gain some fragments from Klein's memories. This gets him acquainted with the basics of this world, such as its history and currency. Now, not wanting to stay any longer, Shou decides to perform the ritual once again at an attempt to return to Earth. So he goes out to buy some food, which is all he needs for the ritual. And while shopping, he felt that he was being followed, so he hid inside a circus tent. Inside this tent, there was a fortune teller, and upon seeing the tarot cards, he realized that the inventor of these cards must have been a reincarnator just like him, that person being Roselle, an emperor from 200 years ago. After returning home, he repeated the ritual, but instead of returning to Earth, he was sent to this mysterious realm surrounded by a great fog and stars. He then accidentally touched 2 of the stars, which summoned a young girl named Audrey and an older man named Alger. Wanting to get some information from the 2, he thought of some tables and chairs to sit down, which the space then created. Seeing as to how the space fulfilled his wish, he decided to use this power to pretend to be a god. And through the conversation between Audrey and Alger, Klein learns of the magic within this world and how a Beyonder is basically a magic user. Now, Audrey wants to become a Beyonder, so she makes a deal with Alger to get the formula for a potion that will help her gain the powers of a spectator. And after the deal is made, Klein ensures that these meetings are a reoccurring event, as it would be the best way to gather information from this world. Now, after Klein returns to his room, he is visited by some inspectors due to his connection to Welch, Naya, and the disappearance of the indigenous diary. And because magic was involved in this case, the Special Task Force Nighthawks were sent to investigate. Klein then tells them that he doesn't know anything as his memories have all been shattered like broken glass. And to verify that he was telling the truth, the inspectors were going to use a psychic to look into his memories. Klein, however, was afraid that they would find out that he came from Earth, and so he ran away. This, however, didn't work, as he was later pulled into a dream by Dune Smith. It was here that the psychic Dally attempted to get the truth out of Klein. However, nothing came of it since he was truly innocent. After the interrogation came to nothing, Dune and Dally invited him to join the Nighthawks with the purpose of searching for the indigenous family's diary. Now moving on to episode 2, after being invited to join the Nighthawks, Klein was given a set of instructions to head to a pub and tell the boss that he wants to hire some mercenaries, which would allow him to enter the Nighthawks headquarters. Once inside, he is greeted and guided by Rosane, a receptionist at the Blackthorn Security Company, which is one of the many cover names the Nighthawks use. After being guided by Rosane, Klein once again meets with Dune, accepting his offer to become a Beyonder under the 7th unit of their police department, which takes care of cases relating to supernatural incidents. It's here that Dune warns Klein of the dangers that come with becoming a Beyonder. While one may gain incredible power, they can also lose control going haywire, and as a result, many of the cases they have to deal with involving Beyonders come from people they had previously worked with. After that warning, Dune gives Klein 4 pathway potions he could choose from that are currently under the possession of the Evernight Goddess Church, those being Sleepless, Corpse Collector, Mystery Prior, and Seer. And out of these 4, only the Sleepless pathway has been completed by the church, which means that it's the only pathway they have the most information on regarding its potion formulas, making it easier to progress through its sequences. Now, Klein eliminates both Sleepless and Corpse Collector due to them not aligning with his goal of further learning about the magic within this world. However, after meeting Neo, a clerk at the Blackthorn Security Company, he was able to read a diary from an emperor from 200 years ago who Klein once thought to have transported into this world just like him. This was all but confirmed when he was able to read his diary's encrypted text, which was just simplified Chinese. In this diary, the emperor wrote about his regret at not choosing the Seer or the Marauder, which gave Klein the idea to go with the Seer pathway, trusting in the emperor's words. After drinking the Seer potion, Klein started to hear and see things he previously had not. His head was then filled with destructive thoughts to relieve some of the overwhelming pain he had felt as the potion's energy was running havoc inside his body, since he did lack the means to take control of it. Knowing this, Neo gave Klein a set of instructions to try and calm down the potion's energy. By thinking of something familiar such as a hat, he was able to clear his mind and regain his composure. This would then become the basic foundation for cogitation, a meditation technique used by Beyonders to further understand and control their powers. By learning this, Klein would be able to fully take control of the potion's energy and unlock his spirit vision. By the way, if this seems unfamiliar, it's because this part was skipped in the Danhua. So as to fully learn cogitation, Klein was told to think of something more abstract as it would elevate his perception, allowing him to enter into a deeper level of cogitation. At first, he imagined a missile he once saw on TV. However, he couldn't properly visualize it, so he let his imagination run wild. And while the potion's energy did seem to leak out of his body for a bit, at the end Klein was able to fully take control of it, allowing him to completely learn cogitation, access his spirit vision, and become a Beyonder. Now that Klein was able to use his spirit vision, he could see the aura of those around him, including a pair of eyes that Neo seems to be hiding, and a person who seems to be eavesdropping. After becoming a Beyonder, Klein was given his first case together with Leonard, which involved tracking down Elliot, the son of a merchant. And so with Elliot's belongings, Klein used his dowsing rod taking abilities to track him. This was one of the divination abilities that he had learned, but instead of dowsing rods, he used a cane as a replacement. Once they found Elliot, Leonard went straight to work and took down the kidnappers. However, they later fused into a monstrous creature due to them losing control of their Beyonder powers. At the end, Leonard defeated the monstrous creature by using his own powers as a Beyonder. After defeating the creature, Klein got a sense of deja vu as he was roaming the house where the kidnapping took place. He then started to hear the same whispers he had heard back when he first took the potion, and it's here that he realized that the original Klein had been to this place before. Within the same scene, it's also revealed that Leonard doesn't trust Klein all that much, and was probably the one eavesdropping on him while he drank the Seer potion. After the case concluded, Klein went back home. However, in reality, he already went to sleep after the case was closed, and was currently inside a nightmare. Inside this dream, he found himself back inside the kidnapper's hideout, now facing the indigenous notebook. And after waking up from the nightmare, he concluded that the house across the kidnapping area had a clue to the indigenous notebook, as he had previously felt that sense of deja vu. Episode 3 then starts off with Dune and Leonard questioning the suspicious man who was following Klein in the first episode. Through their questioning, they uncover his affiliation to an organization called the Secret Order who have a connection to the indigenous family, and due to one of their members' negligence, the notebook was sold off and now they're trying to trace it back. In the midst of this interrogation, Dune was called out by Klein as he had found a clue to the indigenous notebook as shown at the end of episode 2, and so together with Dune and the other Beyonders, Klein went back to the area across where the hostage was held, as this was where Klein had felt that sense of deja vu. It's here that they find the rotting corpse of an old woman. However, not one clue was found regarding the notebook. The only thing that Klein did remember is him delivering the notebook to this location. Now, the dead woman's name was Katie Stephania Bieber, and she was a widow who rented this apartment complex together with her son, Ray Bieber, who had now gone missing. And so to find him, Klein is given a picture of Ray so he can use his dowsing rod taking abilities to track him. However, this didn't work as a strange power seemed to be interfering with his abilities. And And so to try and find his whereabouts, Student Klein went to a place where artifacts are stored in order to use a grade 2 sealed artifact. It's here that 3 more Beyonders joined the search party, with one of them being Dali. Now while this artifact is highly dangerous, it was also created by the indigenous family, and Dune theorizing that Ray might have been a descendant of said family, he thought the best way to find him was through one of the family's creations. Now the reason the artifact was deemed as dangerous is because once it's out, it will slow down anybody within its vicinity both physically and mentally. It will then target one person who will slowly become unable to move until they have fully fallen under its control, and the only way to get out of this paralyzed state is to have someone on the outside intervene, such as a tap on the shoulder. Because of this, Klein was told to move his arms up and down as it will make it easier to see who has been affected by the puppets. And because Klein was the closest one to the artifact, and due to his connection with the indigenous notebook, the puppet chose him as his first target. Noticing this, Leonard tapped him on the shoulder, waking him up from the puppet's control. Now, because of Klein's connection to the indigenous family, the puppet kept on pursuing him until he threw out Ray's coat. The puppet then started to become more aggressive towards it, which confirmed that Ray Bieber was a descendant of the indigenous family, and so they began to track him. Now, inside a warehouse, Ray Bieber was found attempting to consume the notebook through a ritual in order to absorb its power. However, he failed, and as a result, he lost control of his power and turned into a monster. And it was just after this that the clown, a member of the secret order who had been trying to track down the notebook, appeared just as the book was consumed, and so he decided to use the Nighthawks as bait to try and retrieve the notebook from the now turned monster Ray Bieber. Now, as the Nighthawks arrived at this scene, they encountered Ray Bieber and immediately attempted to fight him off. However, because Ray was no longer just a Beyonder who had lost control, as the notebook had corrupted his soul, any attacks that would normally work on corrupted Beyonders essentially phased through his body, leaving him unharmed. The Nighthawks then attempted to pin Ray down, but as soon as Dune was about to pull him into a dream, the notebook reacted, which not only created a small explosion, but it also further enraged Ray. This explosion not only harmed many of the Beyonders, but it also left the puppet unattended. Now, as a final attempt to take Ray down, Klein used a slumber charm to put the monster to sleep, and Dali, who was able to find the weakness of undead creatures, used one of her spells to take Ray down. Now, while this isn't explicitly shown in the Danhua, the reason Ray exploded was because the notebook was taken out of his body, which acted like a heart. Now, as Klein was about to pick up the notebook, the clown made his move, and in between this battle, due to the puppet being left unattended, he was able to break out and use his abilities to control everyone, which was the clown's main goal. Klein then thought of returning back to his fog realm as an attempt to break free from the puppet's control, which seemed to have worked. However, the longer he stayed there, the more likely the other Beyonders would fully fall under the puppet's control. And so, using one of his divinations, he first confirmed that it was safe for him to go back, and since it was, he returned to the outside world where he was no longer under the control of the puppet. However, that was not the case for the rest of the Beyonders. Now, because the notebook was within the vicinity of the puppets, the clown instead offered Klein not only to release the Nighthawks from the puppet's control, but also the Sequence 8 potion formula for the Seer pathway in exchange for the notebook. And as proof that he did know the formula, the clown only revealed the name of the next potion, which was the Clown Potion. Now, thinking he had gained Klein's trust, the clown attempted to wake him up as he was under the assumption that Klein was still under the puppet's control. However, that proved to be futile as Klein pulled on his staff and made him get inside the vicinity of the puppet. And once he was affected by the puppet's powers, Klein decided to end him then and there. But before he fully died, the clown murmured the same words he had heard back when he first drank the Seer potion, and when he went to rescue the hostage back in the second episode. At the end, the indigenous notebook was finally under the hands of the Nighthawks. However, despite this conclusion, Klein was still left with a lot of unanswered questions, such as what are the murmurs he keeps on hearing. And so he goes back to his history professor to try and get some answers, but even he is not too sure about the meaning of those words. So at the end, Klein tells his professor to write him a letter if he finds any information about them. The episode then ends with the professor giving Klein a warning while seemingly knowing more than what he had let on. And that's everything for episodes 1 through 3. Now, I know that jumping around through different plot points at a fast pace could cause a lot of confusion when watching the series, so hopefully this brief breakdown helped you in further understanding what these first couple of episodes were about and maybe give you a clue as to where the series might be headed. With that said, this is going to be the end of the video.